All right, guys, welcome to my channel, guys. So the international community is now beginning to frown at the sentencing of Nnamdi Kalu by Judge Omotosho, and ever since that particular decision, ever since that particular judgment, there had been some unrest, all right, coming from the Igbos all around the world, and because of that, the international community is now beginning to see reasons to actually do something in respect of what is happening. All right. Even though we have the legal team of Nnamdi Kalu, all right, doing all they could to make sure that Nnamdi Kalu appears in appeal court to see whether there is going to be a change or reversal of decision in respect of this particular matter. All right. So I'm going to also leave you guys to see all that was discussed in this particular video update. And just after Maxwell Opera, there is a discussion that involved there's a serious discussion about the decision that was taken for George that seems as if it was someone's personal judgment. And that's the reason why a lot of persons are now beginning to talk about it. All right, the international community has also been saying things about it because it involved an innocent man. Right, so going to leave you into the video. And just in case the first time you're meeting us, please don't be in a hurry to leave, as this video provides a lot of information about what is currently going on and the reaction that is coming just after the decision of sentencing Nnamdi Kalu by the judge Omotosho. So we're going to leave you into the video update, and I'll be right back.
Sokoto, I've been in this town for since 2 days now. Today is the 23rd day of November. I came to see Nnamdi Kanu. I have been with him since yesterday, so we have been discussing. So he's in Sokoto Correctional Center here. And what we are asking now is this. Somebody whose appeal is in Abuja, and they're putting him in Sokoto. And if you want to file some processes, would the federal government made a private jet available for him to take him to Abuja after filing his process to take him back? So that is another issue that is giving us concern, because the place of jurisdiction where he's going to do his appeal is in Abuja, and it's on record that all the filings that he has been doing it by himself in Court of Appeal Abuja Division. So there are some things that he needed to file there, including affidavit. He cannot do it. Everybody is frustrated. We are handicapped. So we are now looking for the next line of action on what to do. But meanwhile, at least for the first time, I have seen him. He's in to confirm that he's in a Sokoto prison here. So I will be leaving to Abuja now. Then thereafter, I'll keep you people updated. Thanks and God bless you. Well done.
Let's start with Dr. David Okoro.
Believe me, I think that is the way to go, because it does seem that government has spent disproportionate resources and time prosecuting one man. We have bandit leaders that are known, Bello Tuji, Dogogi, and the rest of them. We have not given a thought. The effort to bring Kanu from Kenya to Nigeria was huge. We are not spending that kind of energy to look for bandit leaders and terrorist leaders and deal with them. We focus so much energy on this man. So I think that for me, it's a political matter, and I think that it will not be addressed to the judiciary, because it's a whole people. It's an idea. It's a movement, and you don't address a movement with this kind of. So it has to be political, and I think the president should be wise to know that it has to be political.
We have not even had any of these bandits and terrorists brought to court the way we managed to bring Kanu to court.
It is very, very difficult. It is difficult to argue against a political solution. So I would say yes. And some of my reasons are, in this same country, we had the terrorist rehabilitation program. In this same country, in Katsina, they are having so-called peace talks with terrorists who come with guns. And in fact, one of them, in the recent video we saw, they killed a deputy commissioner of police, and he was literally wearing his uniform to the so-called peace talks. right? So in a country where you have these, then I don't see any reason why we should not explore a political conclusion, especially because of the cause, at least the idea behind the fight. I think we must protect people's right to advocate for self-determination. That is an international right. That is a right that every group in Nigeria ought to actually have, and we need to preserve it. So based on these, I feel like a political solution is imperative.
All right, depending on your time zone and your location. Start up on Monday, the 24th day of November. Normally, I do Monday, and today is not going to be an exception. So, wherever you are, during not a minute or two, freedom for the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra. Yes. No matter if I'm so overwhelmed that the love the 80 to 90% love is not in any way affected. So, and with the things naming now, a whole lot of people are beginning to react concerning this Mazen Namdekano's life sentence. And let me tell you the truth. 70 to 80% of reactions in the Mutegudu now is to the favor of Mazen Namdekano. Even the US Congress are beginning to have a discussion concerning the transparency of this judgment application Namdekano. But before we go into that, I'm going to hear that Mazen Namdekano Brano Tata, and this video will prove to you that yes, yes, that's not only do Mazen Namdekano. He will gain his freedom. Don't mind whatever judgment he will do. This particular video here, it is very, very self-explanatory. In this video, they made interview in a video now. They are not from the southeast, but they were very, very transparent, honest in this interview to have led their own opinion concerning this life sentence in Mazen Namdekano. Actually, you watch this video, you know how these people were able to defend Mazen Namdekano because they have seen that this judgment, this whole trial agar, it's not something that should be sorted in courts. It is something political, and the president and Southeast leaders must put hands together. No, we made this case of Mazen Namdekano once and for all. And brought through the legal process that the results will never be transparent because it is a movement. According to this interview, one now, I saw no explain if you this interview. We tell more data. Watch the video from beginning to the end. Share your thoughts and your opinion on the comment section in Kabaro. Post our video because a whole lot was discussed in this video. One person that caught my attention was this Hausa guy from Niger State. He was talking about this Mazen Namdekano's case. See, you can't have bandits negotiating with government, have bandits making videos. You have never seen none of these bandits in court. Then why is Mazen Namdekano being persecuted in court? Watch around this video.
Now, let's shift gears, because of our time, to the judgment that was delivered a few days ago on the Nnamdi Kanu situation, where Justice James Omotosho, found him guilty and, of a series of charges and sentenced him to life imprisonment. Let's start with Mr. David Okoro. What do you think? What's your take on what has happened? We all saw the drama, and eventually the judge had to come down to say, look, I'm just going to have to give this ruling. What is your reading of the situation, Dr. Okoro?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm an ordinary citizen. But I watch and I followed what has happened. I think that I like to allow the lawyers and the pundits to look at what has happened. But I am more concerned about the fallout, the security implication of the fallout of that particular judgment. Because listening to what people are saying, there's a lot of drum of war and all that and all that. I just want to appeal to my people from the southeast, another part of Nigeria, to say, what has happened is that the judiciary have run their own system. They've allowed, like Buhari government said, it is with the judiciary. Let them finish what they are doing, and then the matter can now be before the president, who can use his discretion and use his political sagacity to now address the issue. Up to recently, we saw people that got prerogative of mercy, that were discharged from certain offenses. So I think that now judiciary have done theirs. The politicians should not be allowed to take steps to douse the tension and do what is needful. Because really, Kanu case was largely political. And so if it's largely political, wasn't a problem that the judiciary was going to solve. But because the matter was before the judiciary allowed them to do their own bit, I think that now it is at the top of the politicians to take steps to address it for the betterment of our country and for the unity of Nigeria.
Okay, excellent. And I wanted you to talk about those fallouts while we now go to the core legal issues. That's why we have Mr. Ibrahim Wali. So, Mr. Ibrahim Wali, in your comments, I want you to address the view that the Nnamdi Kanu situation is more political than anything. That's a view. In addressing your comments about what had happened, I want you to also take that into consideration. Over to you, Mr. Wali.
All right, that's fine. But for starters, I would just love to contextualize the hierarchy of actions as put forth by my good doctor. The Court of First Instance, the Federal Court, has decided its case. It has decided the case, but the defendant also has the window to go to the Court of Appeal, and if he disagrees with the position of the Court of Appeal, to go to the Supreme Court. He has 90 days within which to appeal. So the judiciary has not completely run its course. There are still 2 more appellate stages that the defendant can employ. But it's very important that we mention what the charges are to begin with, because most, I don't think Nigerians, especially most of, non-lawyers are familiar with what the charges are precisely. There are 7 counts. Some of the counts have to do with, core terrorism. Like the first count has to do with terrorism, has to do with his broadcast, where he said that people will die. So that was brought under Section 1 of the Terrorism Act itself. Then there is the sit-at-home order, which is the second count that led to economic activities breaking down in the southeast. That in itself was a count. And then there is the self-proclamation of being a member and leader of the indigenous people of Biafra. That is also a count on its own. And there's also the broadcast where he allegedly, he has been convicted now, so I guess we can say that he per the court record, he called for the death of Nigerian personnel and even officials and their family members. And then there is also the count where he allegedly, or rather he informed members of IPOP to make bombs, that is explosives. And then there is the count where, that is the count 7, where, he transported, or he brought in radio transmitters, illegal radio transmitters using, household materials. So these are the counts that upon which his case was presented. In a criminal charge, you have to prove your case beyond reasonable doubt. It doesn't matter if the defense rests their case on that of the prosecution or not. The duty of the prosecution is to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt. Even if there is an admission from the defendant, it does not matter. But that doesn't mean that I disagree with the totality of the court's decision, because having not put forth a defense, then the court has no choice but to give some probative value to the evidence before it. And especially, the court relied heavily on the broadcast. And it said that this while the court acknowledged, the agitations for the legality of agitations for, self-determination, which is recognized both in Nigerian and international law, the court said that there's a limit to agitations, and most of what he said were insightful, and most of what he said were what led to, a lot of the killings. The court mentioned Ahmed Gulak's killing, I think, was it in Imo State? He mentioned, the consequence of the sit-at-home order. One other thing that I disagreed with the court was mentioning the NSAS protest, and I think some of the destructions around the NSAS protest. I personally don't see how, I don't think that his comments, had any direct causal link to what happened during NSAS. Being, apologetic to NSAS myself, being a part of NSAS myself, I was part of the protest. I didn't think of Nnamdi Kanu at any time or point, but this is not me disagreeing with the judgment entirely, but I'm just saying aspects of the judgment that I personally do not agree with. But the court, looked at, it's a 144 pages judgment. It's quite a lot. The court looked at quite a lot of these issues, and it held that he is an international terrorist, because I think that there was also a part of the tapes where he spoke about the British High Commission, although that was not part of the charge before the court, which I also have an issue with, and that is why I had to mention the fact that you can go on appeal. And because you're talking about the implication, one other thing that I have an issue is the court's position on the illegal rendition. So it seems to justify, if I was a prosecutor or an investigator, I would see it as a justification to really, use any means whatsoever to get people to court. And I think that the court ought to have at least warned, law enforcement agencies not to, because there are actually instances. Yes, so there's quite a lot of grounds where the defense can go on appeal.
And then you've given us a very comprehensive detail, and this is something that we have to continue to talk about. But I wanted to ask, one final question: should Nigeria pursue a political solution on the matter of Kanu? Yes or no? What do you guys think? Let's start with Dr. David Okoro.
Believe me, I think that is the way to go, because it does seem that government has spent disproportionate resources and time prosecuting one man. We have bandit leaders that are known, Bello Tuji, Dogogi, and the rest of them. We have not given a thought. The effort to bring Kanu from Kenya to Nigeria was huge. We are not spending that kind of energy to look for bandit leaders and terrorist leaders and deal with them. We focus so much energy on this man. So I think that for me, it's a political matter. And I think that it will not be addressed to the judiciary, because it's a whole people, an idea, it's a movement. And you don't address a movement with this kind of... So it has to be political. And I think the president should be wise to know that it has to be political.
To do that. All right. But I want you to quickly, because I also want you to talk to us in 1 minute, about some of the stuff that is going on in Niger State, where we are told that a politician under the NNPP, a chairmanship candidate, has been in detention beyond the time allowed by law without any kind of charges. I'm talking about Nagenu. I wanted you to also, talk to us in a minute about that. But first, do you think that we should end this matter of Kanu in a political way, considering the fact, just like Dr. Okoro said, that we have not even had any of these bandits and terrorists brought to court the way we managed to bring Kanu to court?
It is very, very difficult. It is difficult to argue against a political solution. So I would say yes. And some of my reasons are, in this same country, we had the terrorist rehabilitation program. In this same country, in Katsina, they are having so-called peace talks with terrorists who come with guns. And in fact, one of them, in the recent video we saw, they killed a deputy commissioner of police, and he was literally wearing his uniform to the so-called peace talks. Right, so in a country where you have these, then I don't see any reason why we should not explore a political conclusion, especially because of the cause, at least the idea behind the fight. I think we must protect people's right to advocate for self-determination. That is an international right. That is a right that every group in Nigeria ought to actually have, and we need to preserve it. So based on this, I feel like a political solution is imperative. Moving on to Niger State, what is happening is, without mincing words, is a state-backed persecution. And instead of the government and the governor specifically to focus on what is happening, especially in Zone C in Niger State, we've had constant terrorist attacks in Mariga, in Kwantagora, in Ibeto. St. Mary's is just a recent occurrence, but Zone C of Niger State is overridden currently by insecurity, by terrorists. But you really rarely hear about it. Well, what they're doing instead is persecuting dissent. We have Abubakar is 28 or 29 days today in prison simply because he called the governor's attention to the Mokwa floods, and he called his attention to the plight of students. Now they've gone on to close all the schools anyway, just to show us that they really do not care about the education of students. It's very important to say that the government mentioned that they had information, they had intel that they were coming into Agwara or into St. Mary's, or rather into Zone C to take children. But instead of sending boots on ground, instead of sending security to cordon off the area, they said that they sent a circular that nobody has seen for the schools to close off. That is admission of incompetence. And we also have Negenu, for example, Abdul Malik, the guy you mentioned, who is currently also in prison, Bidda. His crime is simply to run for office and complain thereafter that there was irregularity during the elections. What actually happened was that the governor had gathered people around in Bidda in their thousands. In fact, there was a stampede the day before in their thousands, just to share money to them. And this is the custom in Niger State today. They will gather people and be sharing 1,000, 2,000 to them. So the second day when they were sharing the money, the money, could not reach everybody. So the people there were angered and they started throwing pelting stones at the convoy of the governor. And instead of the governor to go and, reflect, introspect, and ask why we even have this much people on the streets, this much people hungry, they are not in school, they don't have shelter, they don't have anything, there's no dignity whatsoever. They're trying to blame Negenu, Abdul Malik Negenu, simply because he came out, he said that, his name and his party's name were omitted in the ballot, and he had at least the people showed him love and support, and he was complaining, and now they said that he was the mastermind behind the attack on the governor's convoy. But even the governor's special advisor and the governor's team, before they backtracked and said, he was Abdul Malik Negenu, they came out and said it was due to the fact that there was too many people in House 7, a hotel in Bidda where the governor was staying at the time, when they were sharing money. And when the money weren't enough and people were angered, they started throwing stones at the governor. It was the governor himself who invited the people there. He was the one who told them to come and take money there. A very unfortunate and misguided way of governing a people. You disempower them. You empower them with poverty. You rid them of their dignity. And at the end of the day, you want to blame an innocent man for what is a natural occurrence. It's a natural occurrence. So what is happening in Niger State is highly condemnable, and we call on the government to release these people ASAP. This highly condemnable. Persecution is not going to take the place of governance. It's either they face governance. If they are not going to take criticism, then they should give way for those who are able to. But this is a democracy, and we are going to criticize the government however we deem fit.